You're watching Man Coverage with Nate Schmidt and James Bonneville on National Streaming Sports.
I have a degree in dancing from the Juilliard Academy. Welcome, everyone. This is Man Coverage. This is Knoxville Nate Digital, and James Bonneville. It is November 3rd. Holy shikeys. I did not realize it was November until right now. It is November 3rd, 2024. This is college football week number 10. And we are here early in the morning today at 10 a.m. We are not usually early risers, but we are here early in the morning. We're about to talk about college football week number 10, talk about the Ohio State Buckeyes taking down the Penn State Nittany Lions in Happy Valley. James, how are you doing, buddy?
Holy crap. I looked at the games going into this week, and I'm like, we may struggle getting a lineup in, and quite frankly, we could make this a 4-hour show. This is freaking insane.
It was pretty fun. I enjoyed watching games. I was watching 2 or 3 games at once, and I really got into it, and I love college football, and this is a great time of year, and yesterday did not disappoint. I think we need to start over just south of me in Columbia, South Carolina. This, James, is a team I cannot figure out because the South Carolina Gamecocks are, I believe, 6-3.
5-3.
5-3. Their losses are to LSU, Ole Miss, and Alabama. No shame in losing to any of those teams. But honestly, they should have probably beat LSU.
Yeah.
They missed a field goal there and lost 36-33. They missed a 2-point conversion and then, recovered an onside kick and threw an interception and lost by 2 points against Bama. They got blown out by Ole Miss. But what is your take on this team? I mean, I don't really know where to put them. I don't know really how to judge them. I'll tell you this, the reason that they've been as competitive as they have been, in my opinion, is because of Lenoris Sellers. This guy is dynamic. This guy is huge. He can spin the football. He can run the football. He's hard to take down. In my opinion, the difference between this team this year and the South Carolina teams of the last few years is Lenoris Sellers. What's going on in your mind with South Carolina, and why do you think they've been able to beat some teams like Texas A&M like they did last night?
What's funny is you look since the Beamer era, South Carolina has been very Jekyll and Hyde.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what the hell you're going to get from week to week. But the one thing I looked at going into this game is, honestly, I thought A&M was overrated. I mean, who have they beaten? It seems like everybody's played Mississippi State on their schedule. And, they keep going back. Well, their only loss is at home to Notre Dame, who lost the next week to Northern Illinois. Yes, yeah. The same Northern Illinois that's in the, middle to bottom middle of the freaking MAC.
Yeah.
I looked at this game at home, at night, in William Bryce. You got Sellers and Raheem Sanders in the backfield. I thought at some point South Carolina was going to freaking bust through and make it happen. And I mean, hell, you had 286 yards on the ground, 6.7 average. I mean, 44-20 makes it sound like it was closer than it was. It was in the second half. South Carolina put their freaking foot on A&M's throat and choked them out.
Yeah, the A&M offense was just stagnant in the second half, and especially the fourth quarter. They had plenty of opportunities. I mean, it was really, I think it was a 7-point game at one point in the fourth quarter, and A&M, had the ball, and they just could not get a first down
Yeah.
much less, get down close to score. And I couldn't really understand what was happening. I mean, South Carolina's defense is not bad, but it was like they were dominating Texas A&M. I think they only had 3 sacks, but they were in the backfield all night long.
Oh, they were living there
and causing issues. For the Texas A&M quarterback, Marcel Reed. He looked like a freshman to me in this game. What did you think about his performance?
The same, honestly.
Yeah.
I thought the game really overwhelmed him. I mean, his stats weren't awful, but at some point I thought they were going to throw Connor Wegman in like they have in the past. It seems like honestly, how many games have you seen where one quarterback isn't doing well and automatically, like the old Steve Spurrier days, here comes Doug Johnson, here comes Danny Werfel, and they get the line change. Heck, they'll do it in the middle of a freaking series.
Well, and they've been doing that.
Yeah.
And so I didn't understand why they didn't do it. I didn't understand why they didn't do it yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. I honestly, this was a game I walked into. I've been saying it over and over. I think A&M is not as good as their record shows. And it showed. It literally showed. I mean, South Carolina took it to them. That second half was devastating. I mean, granted, Rocket Sanders, it's not like we just learned about him this year. When he was at Arkansas, he was a hell of a back too.
True. But he hasn't had a game like he had yesterday in quite some time. And, I said the reason that, South Carolina has been winning some of these games and has been in some of these games is because of the dynamic ability of Sellers. Well, yesterday, the reason that they ended up pulling away from A&M was Raheem Sanders. I mean, 144 yards on the ground, 92 yards in the air, a 52-yard touchdown. I mean, he was making waves by himself yesterday. And just shredding that Texas A&M defense, which we've heard so much about. What does this do to A&M now? I mean, are they still in the mix for the SEC championship? Are they still in the mix for the playoff? Where does this put them? And how good do you think this South Carolina team is? So I guess I got twofold question for you there.
Well, I mean, you look at A&M's schedule on the way out. They got to play New Mexico State. They're going to win. They got to play Auburn, which is, let's be honest,
terrible.
If you're not going to play Mississippi State, you better be playing Auburn too as well, because those are 2 wins. Mark them down. And then they got Texas. They're going to go 2-1 on the way out, and they're going to come in 9-3 going in, and they have an outside chance of making the playoff. But honestly, I would probably take Boise over them right now. If you had a head-to-head matchup, I think I would take Boise over Texas A&M, wouldn't you?
I would. And what do you see any chance of them beating Texas or giving them a good game?
No. God, no. It's going to be a freaking boat race. Like, honest to God, unless the wheels completely fall off.
Well, Texas didn't look that great last week, bro.
Yeah, I know. And that's what I mean. If the wheels fall off like that, then there is a possibility. I want to see how Texas responds next week. Because if that's a trend, then A&M's got a shot. But if Texas played like it did prior, hell, it's game over. It could be a 30-point game.
Yeah, I agree. And let's get into our next game here, because we got a bunch of games to discuss, and I want to jump over to the ACC. First off, how bad is the ACC? My God.
Yeah.
It's just a really bad conference. And, I struggle to discuss how good Miami is, or, how not good they are, because I don't know. And that's because of the conference they play in. I mean, I don't really give them any credit for any of the games they're in, and we'll talk about them later. But, I kind of, both of us, I think, kind of pegged the second best team in the ACC to be Clemson. And then they go in yesterday against Louisville, and
at home,
and it wasn't even really close. They got kind of bitch slapped by Jeff Brom and Louisville, 33-21. It wasn't really that close. I mean,
no.
They scored a touchdown late to make it that close, but it really wasn't that close. What happens now with Clemson? Now they're 6-2. I guess they still kind of have a chance to maybe get into the ACC championship if they get some help, but I almost think they're done.
Well, I mean, you look at their schedule on the way out, it ain't exactly easy.
No.
I mean, you got to go to Vatech, to Pitt, home against Citadel, home against South Carolina.
Yeah, I think they've got Citadel, but Pitt and South Carolina, neither one of those games is going to be easy. I mean, especially after Pitt getting pistol whipped yesterday, I think they'll have a little toot on their shoulders. And then South Carolina has proved to be no easy match. I mean, if I had to pick who I think would win between South Carolina and Clemson right now, I would take the Gamecocks.
I would too. I mean, if the game was in Clemson, I would take Clemson for sure over Virginia Tech. But in Blacksburg, I mean, Virginia Tech, granted, you want to talk about another schizophrenic team is Virginia Tech. Some days they look like world beaters. Some days they can't beat themselves. I don't see Clemson going 4-0 on the way out. Do you?
No, I really don't. I don't. I don't. I have less faith in them now after the game yesterday. I mean, let's be honest. Louisville wasn't like really tearing it up. I mean,
no.
They had 156 passing yards, and they really did most of their damage on the ground with Isaac Brown going for 20 carries, 151 yards. That's 7.6 per carry. I mean, that to me, that and the blocked field goal, kind of turned the table on this game. And, what's happened to Clemson's defense? I mean, I know Venables is gone, but this team used to be predicated on their defensive line.
Yes.
And, their ability to cover on the back end and, really athletic, badass linebackers like Isaiah Simmons and Trotter, and we could go down the list. And I just don't see those guys on this team anymore.
They don't look fast on the back end, and they don't have the depth on the D-line. I mean, you look back during their heydays, their two biggest strengths were their D-line and their depth at receiver. And what are the two biggest weaknesses now? Their D-line's not deep, and they have – I mean, who's their best receiver? Brookingstall? I mean, honestly, it's what Cole Klubnik has done this year is kind of freaking amazing, considering the supporting cast outside of Maffa is pedestrian, would probably be the best word I would use. I mean, in all honesty, this was a Jeff Brom game. Jeff Brom outcoached $11.5 million coach yet again. How many times have we seen Jeff Brom win games just like this? Except they did it with defense, which their defense hasn't been stellar, and they did it on the ground. Tyler Shuck, 17 for 32 for 156.
He was bad.
He was bad, and they freaking boat raced him.
I know. They blew them out, and he looked like a freshman quarterback. I mean, he was just not good, and I just wasn't impressed with what I'd seen out of Louisville going into this game. That's why I didn't really expect. I know we've seen Jeff Brom come up with some pretty amazing victories in the past, but let's look at their schedule. I mean, they played Notre Dame, they lost. They played SMU, they lost. They played Miami, they lost. They kind of gave them a close game, and they were kind of hanging with them, but they just every good team they've played, they've lost to. And, last week against Boston College, it was a pretty close game. I mean, they ended up winning by 4 points, but they could have lost that game. So I just didn't really have a ton of confidence going into this. And, they got it done doing kind of the Clemson things, special teams, playing good defense. I mean, the Clemson offense just could never really get going in my mind.
Well, I mean, now you're going to have the statistic hounds coming out there. Well, Clemson had 450 yards total offense on 101 plays. On 101 plays, you better have 600 yards, 650. If you're averaging 4.4 yards per play and you score 21 points, man, that film session last night or this morning is going to be a shit show.
No, I agree. And, this, I think, further proves that Clemson's just not what they once were. I mean,
not even close.
They're not. They were just, for 6 years, they were one of the top 2 teams in the country, year in and year out. They either won the national championship or they played for it. And now I don't know if they're even a top 15 team at this point. And
you go back to, you had a string of Taj Boyd, Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, great quarterbacks. But not only that, you had great receivers there as well. You had Sammy Watkins, DeAndre Hopkins, Amari Cooper, T. Higgins. The list goes on and on and on. And what do you got now besides Maffa and Klubnik? Jack shit.
And that's why I don't want to rip on Klubnik too much. He doesn't look like the greatest quarterback in the world, but what does he really have around him? I don't.
He can't throw to himself.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think he's terrible. I just don't think he has a bunch of talent around him to make him look good.
Quite frankly, them being 6-2 right now is completely predicated on the back of Cole Klubnik. He has done far more than he ever had to. If this was DJU at quarterback, 3-4 or 3-5.
Yeah, I'm given what I've seen from this team at times, the fact they're 6-2 is mildly impressive.
Yeah,
just based on what they've got, and we'll see what happens. But I think right now, we'll talk about SMU in a minute. But I want to get your take after we talk about the SMU game. What you think the trajectory of the ACC is? Who's the best team? How many teams are getting in? Whether you think SMU can even beat Miami, all that kind of garbage. We'll talk about that in a second. But first,
I think we need to discuss a little game in a little stadium up in Happy Valley, Pennsylvania. Will Howard, born and raised in Pennsylvania, goes to Kansas State, wasn't even recruited by Penn State, and then he comes back and takes down the Nittany Lions. However, I'm not so sure it was all him yesterday. That pick six was just horrible.
Well, he had 3 touchdown passes. One was to the other team, but he had 3 touchdown passes.
Yeah, I just, after that Oregon game, I was riding high with Will Howard. I was ready to get a Will Howard jersey and put a poster up in my room. And now I don't know about that. He's making me very nervous. Yesterday, the victory, sorry, Will, had nothing to do with Will Howard, to be honest with you. This game was won by the Ohio State defense once again.
Yep.
Tyleik Williams in the middle. This is 2 weeks in a row now where a team has had the ball on the 1 yard line with first down and failed to get in the end zone. That's saying something, James. People wanted to crucify Jim Knowles after the Oregon game. And since then, this defense has been freaking lights out. Talk to me about what you think about the Buckeye defense and how good they are after watching them play yesterday.
If this Buckeye defense was the one that showed up in Oregon, we'd be having a very different conversation about where the Ohio State Buckeyes are. Granted, it's a long freaking season, and it's hard to stay up for every freaking game. But, when this offensive line has had the injuries that it had, and let's be honest, this offensive line hasn't had depth for how freaking long. It's not like this is a new subject. Since Ryan Day's been there, the depth there has been literally horrendous. This defense, though, has taken it next level. And if they're going to win a national championship, granted, did you ever think if you're going to win a national championship, it's going to be on the back of Will Howard? Hell no. It's going to be in the back of this defense because defense wins championships.
That's the reason that Ohio State is in the position that they are in, the reason that they are ranked as high as they are. I've been there. I've watched it from the 4th row. This defense is legitimate. And honestly, if you look back at that Oregon game, you take away about 6 bombs that got dumped on Denzel Burke.
Yeah.
And the defense didn't play that bad. They just gave up some huge plays, or Denzel did. and I'm not blaming it all on him. They just couldn't get home. They couldn't get a pass rush going for whatever
Yeah,
reason.
the penetration in the Oregon game, that was their biggest downfall. I mean, Jack Sawyer, I question if he even played that game. Like, literally, he's got to be a bigger presence game in and game out. You got to have that, know who he is. And there's games he just doesn't show up.
No, and he's played better since that game. Yesterday, he did not get credited with a sack, but he was in the backfield.
Yeah.
He had a pass deflection. He had, he played a pretty good game all in all. JT Talamula, who was the Penn State wrecker a couple years ago, had one of the greatest games any defensive players ever had. He played well yesterday, too. I was impressed with him. He stepped up. Cody Simon, who I was ready to put on the bench, was one of the reasons they won. I mean, the guy had 10 tackles. He had a sack, a huge sack, by the way, a tackle for loss. He was all over the place. And I got to give some credit to, the rotation. They're not just playing those four guys 85% of the snaps anymore. They're rotating Kenyatta Jackson Jr. And some of the backup guys in to give, a fresher set of bodies out there on the defensive line. And yesterday I thought that helped as well. And then you had Davis and Igbenusa playing some big time football as well. He had a pass deflection. He had an interception. He was probably one of the best players on the back end. And then I've got to tell you this, the reason, in my opinion, that this Buckeye defense is as good as they are is because of number 2. That guy is just freaking amazing. In my opinion, he's the best safety in all of college football. And I'm talking about Caleb Downs.
Oh, his star keeps getting brighter and brighter by the second. But I do have one complaint about the game. Fox, please get rid of Big Noon. I mean, this is a game that should have been at night. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And I'm really tired of seeing a showcase game being at noon, because when the stars are out, the stars come out. And it just means more being a night game.
I agree, but I was okay with it being during the day because a lot of people have trouble getting as drunk as they want to at noon o'clock.
Yeah.
So, I was okay with going up to Happy Valley with 111,000 fans and it being, high noon. I think that was good. I don't know if you saw, but walking off the field, a couple of fans decided to, one guy in particular, scream at Jim Franklin and tell him that he sucks and that he should be fired. And I got to give James Franklin some credit, bro. He walked up to this kid and he goes, "What? What'd you say?" And the kid's like, "I said you suck." And he goes, "What's your name? What's your name?" And the kid goes like, "What?" And he's like, "What's your name?" And right then the kid just turned around and runs away. And Franklin's like, "What? You can tell me I suck, but you can't even tell me your name? Whatever, dude." And I was just like, good for you, Jim. These people want to rip on all of these coaches for not winning every single game. And I'm just a little sick of it. These guys that have never coached or played in a college football game in their lives think they know more than James Franklin does. And I'm sorry, you don't. And I didn't think his game plan was terrible.
In NCAA 25, though, that kid, I guarantee, won 3 national championships with Penn State.
I'm sure he did.
I mean, his recruiting is revolutionary. I mean, they talk about him in the game like he's the Larry Johnson of recruiting. I mean, come on.
I agree.
The guy makes $9.5 million. What do you make?
Yeah, seriously. That's what I'm trying to tell these people. If you know so much about football, by God, take your name and put it in the hat for one of these jobs because it pays well, folks.
Yeah.
Make yourself $10 million a year. Hell, you can get fired after 3 years and never work again.
Jimbo Fisher's making $75 million doing jack shit. I would love to make $75 million sitting on my ass.
Yeah, I would love for someone to pay me to not work. That would be great. But as I mentioned, this game was won because of the Jim Knowles and the Buckeye defense, and then also because this offensive line was able to run block some yesterday. Quinshon Junkins went for 95 yards. Travion Henderson only carried the ball 10 times, and he went for 54 yards. They were able to run the ball, and they were able to run block, and I did not think that may possibly occur considering they're on their third left tackle. I mean,
hell, at some point they may need to go to the university and do tryouts at left tackle because holy crap, the way the guys were going down.
Yeah, I mean, we had Simmons go down in the Oregon game. They replaced him. And then, that guy got hurt last week against Nebraska. And so they had to kick out Donovan Jackson. I love Donovan Jackson. He's a all Big Ten offensive guard. I am not sure that he's a left tackle, my friend.
Yeah.
I just don't know about that. But he did the best job he could possibly do. And so we're going to give him a little bit credit for that. Before we go to break, why don't we talk for just a couple of minutes here? We got about 4 minutes before our break, and I think we can go ahead and talk about the Indiana-Michigan State game in that time, because this is a game where Michigan State in East Lansing went up 10-0 on the Indiana Hoosiers. And it's like, oh, here we go again. The Indiana Hoosiers, everybody thinks they're the greatest team in the world. They're undefeated. Now they're losing 10-0. Then they score 47 straight points. James, I have no idea how good this Indiana team is, but I can tell you right now, even if they never win another game, this has been a magical season, and this guy deserves Big Ten Coach of the Year. What do you think about him?
Well, let's be honest. They're not the Indiana Hoosiers. They're the Indiana Dukes. I mean, how many kids from James Madison are on this Indiana roster? And everybody's going to talk about this offense. Honestly, nobody's talking about their defense. And they gave up, that's right, on 32 carries, negative 36 yards rushing.
Wow.
Not like a couple negative yards, negative 36. I mean, that's freaking crazy. That is insane.
The longest run all day from the Michigan State Spartans was 9 yards.
Yeah.
That was the longest run all day long. If you can finish a 4-quarter football game and your opponent's longest run of the day is 9 yards, you're pretty good. You're doing something right. And they gave up 0 points in 3 quarters. So in the first quarter, they gave up 10 points. Second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, settle. I mean,
7 sacks, 15 tackles for loss. Whew. I mean, honestly, I'm shocked it wasn't worse.
It could have been. And there's been several games this year, including the Nebraska game, where I could have seen Indiana potentially scoring 80 to 100 points.
Will the committees actually, the voters actually do the right freaking thing and put these guys in the top 10? Because I'm sorry, A&M should not have been in the top 10. LSU should not have been in the top 10. Put them where they belong. This is a good team.
Yeah, no, they are. And they've, up to this point, they have put a lot of good things on tape. And I am going to, reserve my judgment on this team. But I have to give credit where it is due. They're getting it done, man. And this doesn't look like an Indiana football team of old. And, I'm ready to give this guy the trophy for Coach of the Year because of what he's done.
How do you not? I mean, what more does he have to freaking do? I mean, think about it. In 2 weeks or in 3 weeks, the game of the year for the Big Ten is going to be Indiana at Ohio State.
Correct.
I mean, when have you ever thought about an Indiana game in November? Hell, late November.
Never. Have never. I don't think this is the first time in the school's history that they've ever won 9 games.
Yeah.
And they're doing it in week 10. And, I said to give this guy the Coach of the Year. This is not going to be his, Kurt Signetti's first Coach of the Year award. He was the PSAC Coach of the Year in 2012. He was the CAA Coach of the Year in 2017. He was the Sun Belt Coach of the Year in 2022. He was the Sun Belt Coach of the Year in 2023. This guy is a good damn coach, and there's no doubt about it. But I had no clue he was going to do this in year 1, and no one did.
If you pick this, I'm sorry. Go buy freaking lottery tickets. You pick the numbers because you're never going to miss. I mean, literally, this is You call this one out, you're either completely full of shit or you get a rabbit's foot shoved up your ass. I mean, this is crazy.
It's no one picked it. I can tell you that right now. No one was talking about this guy leading them to a 9-0 record. It just wasn't happening. Nobody was doing it. Nobody thought that they would be as good as they are. And I was one of them. But
yeah,
kudos to the Hoosiers. And I hope they win every game except for the one against the Buckeyes.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop live events with confidence.
All right, so go to SeatGeek right now. Enter in promo code NSS for National Streaming Sports, our parent company. Joe and all the boys take care of us over there. And, this is our gift to you. $20 off any event that you are attempting to go to. SeatGeek.com. Enter in promo code NSS. Talking about promo codes. Iowa State, buddy, undefeated, right? Going into this ball game
at home.
Texas Tech, not that great. Did not think this was going to be the one that they struggled in. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that I watched the Texas Tech guy throw at least 2, maybe 3 interceptions. And yet they still were able to get this done. I don't even know what to say about this game because I watched the whole thing and I'm still confused as to what I saw.
Yeah.
I mean, Texas Tech, I cannot figure out. They kind of look good one week and then look bad the next. Taj Brooks is a hell of a running back. He went for 122 yards yesterday. That was helpful. But I don't know. I felt more like Iowa State kind of lost this game than Texas Tech won it. What did you think about the first loss of the season for the Cyclones?
Well, if Texas Tech was going to win this game, putting up 23 points was like the last number I would see them putting up. Like I would have thinking 40 plus. Yeah. This is a team that really, Zach Kitely, I'm a huge fan of. Joey McGuire, I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah.
This is something about the Big 12, and the next game we're going to talk about the same thing. Stop playing with your freaking meal and choke it out. If you're the better team, win early. Do not give hope to a team that should not be beating you, because giving them hope just is going to kill you. And I mean, Morton only going 21 of 40. I mean, this is, if it wasn't for Taj Brooks, what would this game have been? I mean, this is just, I don't even understand it. I mean, heck, you go into our next game with K-State and Houston. What the hell? Seriously, what the hell?
I didn't think that K-State would have any chance of losing that game, but
I thought they boat raced them by 30.
I did too, especially the way they've been playing. It's like Kansas State has been building up. I can't figure out this Big 12 at all.
Well, this is the same Kansas State team I saw play against BYU. First couple drives, they got inside the 10. They couldn't punch it in. And then all of a sudden, BYU got the freaking ball rolling, and they couldn't do anything. They were just like lost. They looked very immature in many ways.
Yeah, and now where are we at with this Big 12 conference? I mean, you have 4 ranked teams. I mean, obviously that's going to change come tomorrow. But as of right now, before the polls come out, we've got 4 ranked teams: BYU, Iowa State, Colorado, Kansas State. Probably not the teams a lot of people would have picked to be there. You got Oklahoma State, who's 0-6. You got Arizona, who's 1-5 in the conference. Kansas, who a lot of people, liked preseason with their, quarterback coming back, 1-4. You got Utah, 1-4. I have no idea who the best team in this conference is. I mean, I guess you have to say it's BYU, considering they're undefeated and they're 8-0. But I'm not necessarily in love with them. Who do you like in this conference, James, and how do you see this shaking out?
I mean, honestly, I look back on it, and you look at BYU's best win would be at SMU, which at the time we thought was a what the hell game.
Yeah.
And now we look back at it, and I mean, BYU's been playing with its food. I mean, it had to come from behind to beat Oklahoma State at home. I mean, BYU's going to make the playoff, but I think they're going to get curb stomped, like in a major, major way.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm not sold on BYU, to be honest with you. And I wasn't necessarily sold on Iowa State either. And those were the two teams that were undefeated. And we saw Iowa State go down yesterday. And I'm not so sure that BYU may not lose as well as we come up. You look at their schedule that they've got going out here as far as BYU goes. They play Utah, Kansas, Arizona State, Houston. In theory, they should win all of those games.
Yeah.
But I could see them slipping up easy.
Well, how many times have we seen teams play with their food and it comes back to bite them in the ass? Yeah. I mean, it's so many, it's not even funny. And I know you got to put the conference champion in if they're from a power conference, but come on. I mean, this isn't even funny. I mean, BYU is just going to get curb stomped big time.
Well, yeah, and I would think the Big 12 should probably have SMU in it. Why did they not get SMU and put them in their conference? Because think about how much better the Big 12 would be if they had SMU in it. Do you agree with that?
You know, quite frankly, it's funny you bring up SMU. I think Rhett Lashley, who we've all known to be an outstanding offensive coordinator, if it wasn't for Kirk Cignetti, we'd be talking about Rhett Lashley quite a bit, and he is going to be. I do not expect him to be in Dallas next year. I expect him to be on somebody else's sidelines. Call me crazy, Gainesville.
Yeah.
And I think it would be a good fit. I mean, quite frankly, what he's done at SMU. I mean, you've got to go back to the Pony Express days on how successful they've been. Granted, they're not, well, I guess they are paying their players, but I mean,
yeah, they are actually.
Rhett Lashley is such a good coach, and nobody talks about him because everybody is so infatuated with Kurt Cignetti, which deservedly so.
But yeah, definitely.
I mean, he's not gonna be in Dallas next year.
No, and talk to me a little bit about this game yesterday. 48-25 was the final, but that was not anywhere. I mean, Pitt scored 14 points in the fourth quarter to make it look better, but it was 48-11 at one point. So this game was not that close. Eli Holstein, who'd been playing pretty well all year, I mean, he just couldn't really get it going. This SMU defense, like I said, held Pitt to 11 points through three quarters. No one's been really talking about their defense, and I thought they played really well yesterday.
Yeah.
Led by Kobe Wilson, who had 11 tackles. Ahmad Moses, Ahmad Walker, all had double-digit tackles. It was pretty impressive what they did, and I did not expect. This is another team that nobody told me that SMU was going to be good in the preseason. Not one person.
I thought they'd be middle of the road to bottom middle of the ACC. And then I kept, as bad as the ACC was, I'm like, they're just good because the conference is that bad. Man, this SMU team is pretty freaking good. Like,
they're legitimate.
Good. I mean, Jennings is having that was a fucking hell of a game. And Smith, 23 carries, $161. I mean,
anytime you can average 7 yards a clip and bust off a 71-yard run, that's pretty solid. I mean, but this is a team that isn't like 3 yards in a cloud of dust. They can score touchdowns from anywhere. Matthew Hibner, the wide receiver, he had an 80-yard touchdown. Keyshawn Smith had a 43-yard catch. They had two guys that had 20-yard catches, the 71-yard run. They had some explosive plays, and this is a team that can, put points on the board. And obviously dropping 48 on a previously undefeated Pitt team was pretty impressive yesterday.
I mean, they're just so fast. I mean, that is the one thing about this SMU team is this team speed is just remarkable. I mean, you see that 20-yard touchdown that Smith had. I mean, nobody was even close. And you look back at Pitt teams or more Narduzzi teams, their defense really sets the tone. You drop 48 on a Narduzzi defense. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's a guy that, manned the defense at East Lansing for a number of years. And, that was under why am I going blank? The coach.
I can see his face now. I can't remember his name. It's
Michigan State.
Oh my God.
You know who I'm talking about.
Yes. Michigan State. I got to look it up now because I'm like.
Anyway, Narduzzi was the defensive coordinator for him for years. And that was a team that was, more known for their defense. And Pitt's been pretty solid this year defensively. I mean, you're talking about the most points they've given up all year was 34, to West Virginia. And then to yesterday, give up 48 to SMU was kind of a big swing. I mean, this is the same team that played Syracuse last week, who, let's be honest, Kyle McCord and Syracuse's offense has been pretty dang solid. And they turned over Kyle McCord 3 times for interceptions. He had 2 pick sixes and, took care of business 41-13. And to come out here the next week and lay an egg against SMU, I think it shows us more that SMU is pretty good than Pittsburgh. Than the Pittsburgh sucks.
Mark D'Antonio.
Thank you. God, I can't believe
I've 13 years and he was magnificent East Lansing, and I can't believe I disrespected him like that.
Me too. I college football Hall of Famer, and I could not remember his name for the life. It was only because I was trying to mention it.
Yeah.
That the name escaped me. But I mean, Narduzzi's a good defensive coach, and you could have told me otherwise after watching yesterday. Let's talk a little bit about the Big Ten right now. There's a little team pretty close to where you reside that played the Illinois Fighting Illini yesterday. And your boys got it done, man. I mean, 6-3 now, 4-2 in the Big Ten. Let's be honest, there's a couple of games that could have gone the other way. The game against the team up north in particular. And that's the Golden Gophers' 4th straight win. What is the reason in your mind for the Gophers turnaround? And what's the ceiling for this team?
Well, I mean, I look at this team right now, and if you want to look at the Waterloo moment, you would have to look at the second half of the Michigan game and how that changed.
The Waterloo moment.
I mean, seriously, but they have looked so much better since the second half of that Michigan game. It's not even funny. And conversely, look at how bad Michigan's been since the second half of that game. And quite frankly, if the refs didn't screw the Gophers over, they would have won. And we'd be having a different conversation right now. But now you look at, Brosmer passing at 70% completion percentage. Daniel Jackson is really coming on strong as a receiver. They really tried to lock him up yesterday, but DT, Darius Taylor, and Marcus Major did a great job on the ground. And this defense, especially coming off the edge with Ja Joyner, this defense is pretty freaking solid. You got Rutgers next week. Mark it down. That's a win. Penn State at home. Last game of the year. Last home game. If this game was in Happy Valley, I'd be having a different conversation. But I think Minnesota can win that game. And then at Wisconsin, the end of the year, 9-3 in this Big Ten with this schedule, It's remarkable. It's freaking remarkable. The potential of 9-3 with this team is just crazy.
It's unreal. And I was being very critical of PJ Fleck at the beginning of the season, and maybe rightfully so.
That Iowa game, he just got outcoached. I mean, there's
really
so many
did.
times for Kirk Ferentz that's just completely outcoached him. But you look at that mark of the Michigan game, man, things just took off. The defense looks significantly better. And Coy Parrish at safety, the freshman, I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this. There is a legit shot he can make a run at Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith for freshman of the year.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know about that, but pretty
I
close.
Think it's going to be closer than you think.
Hey, so I know we're not talking about the largest cocktail party in the world, but I don't know if you've seen the videos yet of what went down yesterday at the Georgia-Florida game.
Yeah.
But have you seen this?
I have. The cops.
Oh my God, dude. I mean, can you imagine paying money to get your ass kicked by the police? I mean,
now I wish they would show there was video of it, what was happening a minute before.
yeah, I don't think they just started beating these guys' asses because they wanted to.
Yeah.
But this is why I don't go to as many games as I used to, because this is what happens at these games. These people get completely blitzkrieg drunk,
Yes.
and then start fighting cops, and I'm like, what in the hell is going on? Sorry about that graphic video, people. I watched that earlier today, and I was just like, oh my God, people, can we just not watch the football game and enjoy ourselves? And since we were about to talk about the Georgia-Florida game, I think let's just say I think people are a little bit upset with the season that's gone on for the Gators because they're getting the shit kicked out of them by policemen at the same time as watching their team get beat again.
Implode in the fourth quarter.
Well, and let's be honest, man. Florida was in control of this game.
Yeah.
I mean, they really were. I mean, they were up 13-3. They were dominating this game, and then DJ Legway, not that he was particularly tearing it up, but he did throw a deep touchdown, I think a 43-yard touchdown pass to take the lead. And as soon as he hurt his hamstring and went out, this game was over, in my opinion. I mean, you bring in the third stringer, who's a walk-on transfer from Yale, Aiden Warner. I mean, God bless this kid. I felt so bad for him. It was embarrassing. He couldn't throw the ball 10 yards. It was embarrassing to watch. And
how it was a 2020 game with 7 minutes to go is still shocking to me.
I don't know.
It honest to God, I mean, this Georgia team, I mean, Carson Beck, and we've talked about this before, made a colossal mistake to come back for his senior year. I mean, he'd have been better off, kind of like, in that second Batman movie, the one with Christopher Nolan, the Joker.
Yeah.
Where he just lights the money on fire. Yeah, that was Carson Beck, because honestly, he would have been a top 10 pick last year. Now, I don't even think he's going to be in the first 3 rounds. I mean, he's been a mess.
Well, what is this? Is this his 3rd game in a row that he's done this? No, 2nd. He's had 2 games in a row with 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
I know that. He had 3 interceptions in the Texas game. They won. 3 interceptions against the Florida in the Florida game, and they won. He's the only player in the history of college football that's thrown 3 interceptions in 2 straight games and won them both. And then if you go back to the Mississippi State game the week before, he threw 2 interceptions against the Bulldogs, who are 1-5. I've got serious concerns about this Georgia team. If they didn't have one of the best defenses in all of college football, this team would have lost about 4 games so far. And I have no faith anymore in Carson Beck. And I don't think that coach does either.
But who are you going to put in next?
No, you can't take him out. I'm just saying, I see Kirby Smart, over on the sidelines, like holding his breath every time he calls a passing play.
In the last 3 games, he's had 5 touchdown passes and 8 interceptions.
Yeah.
I can tell you this.
And looked bad doing it.
Yeah, I mean, you had 2 interceptions against Mississippi State. 2. I mean, how Mississippi State put up 31 on you. I mean, Mikael Williams and Jalen Walker should hold their head in shame. I look at this Georgia team and they're hanging on for freaking dear life.
They really are. And this is a very talented team, but they're just not getting much help from their offense. And the quarterback position is, making them look pedestrian and look very beatable. The question is, though, who's going to beat them? It could be Ole Miss. It could be Tennessee. But I feel like one of those teams is going to beat them. Do you agree with that?
Well, I mean, if Ole Miss played like it did yesterday, but, to talk about another Jekyll and Hyde team, Ole Miss looks good one moment and craps their pants the next. I mean,
yeah,
this whole year is just so weird. There's no consistency year to year. And maybe under the new transfer rules and NIL rules, this could become the norm, which I hope to God not.
Oh, it's going to be. I think the Bama dynasty years are just over. There's not going to be a team that's just so much better, because in the past, when Alabama would win 7 championships in a row, it's because they had the depth. They had all these kids that were 5 stars, 4 stars waiting to play. Nobody waits to play anymore. They go somewhere else. They transfer out. They go get more. I mean, it's a year-to-year league. It's just like college basketball.
Yeah.
Look at a college basketball team one year. You look at their 12, 10, 9, 10 guy rotation, and you look at it the next year, and it's almost completely different. And that's how college football is becoming. And that's why nobody can dominate anymore. And the distance between Georgia and the next level of teams is just, it's shortened. And
very much so.
And that's why
I'm
seeing this.
I don't think people realize this that much, but think back to when you were 18 to 23 and how much your body changed. I sound like a freaking health class from middle school right now, and your body changing. I mean, seriously, you see radical shifts in size and speed, both plus and minus. Some people develop too early. And that's why, just because you're a 5-star coming out of high school doesn't mean and guarantee you're going to be a 5-star when you're 21, 22. You could be a bust because you may have already hit your peak.
Yeah, I don't know how we got onto the subject of puberty, but but we did. And I just think that it's it's what we've seen now. I mean, Ole Miss put up 63 points yesterday on Arkansas, who beat Tennessee.
Yeah,
I mean, this Arkansas team held Nico and the Vols offense, to under 20 points. I think under 15. I think they scored 14 points the entire game. And yesterday they gave up 63 to Ole Miss. And Jackson Dart's another one of these guys that, one game I think he's the best quarterback in the country. And other games I think he's not that great.
Yeah.
So I don't really know. I'm not going to, put Ole Miss into the playoff because they scored 63 against Arkansas. I think, whether or not they bring back Sam Pittman next year is still kind of up in the air. I think it kind of depends on how Arkansas finishes, but I think Arkansas was kind of playing above where they really are as a football team. And yesterday they kind of got exposed.
Yeah, very much so.
6 touchdown passes. Jordan Watkins had 5 touchdown catches himself, 8 catches, 254 yards, and 5 TDs. I mean, that's freaking Jalen Hyatt against Alabama shit right there.
I mean, if you don't like watching defense, this was the game for you. I mean, because honest to God, it was like watching 7-on-7. It was just a freaking arena football at its best.
Yeah, I don't really care for games like that because I get confused as to where the defense has gone, but that's what happens. Another team which we can talk about that makes no sense is the Nebraska Cornhuskers. They beat Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes, and everybody thinks they're great. And then they play Indiana and get boat raced 56-7. Then they show up in Columbus and actually play a really good football game and look pretty good. and then they go and play UCLA and lose. I mean, is there any team that's been more up and down than Nebraska?
Well, once again, they lost by 1 score. I mean, it is comical. I mean,
this goes back to Scott Frost. Remember, he lost 9 games by 1 score that one year when they were 3-9.
I mean, it's, Bo Pelini doesn't look so bad now in Nebraska, does he? You guys are upset when he only won 9 games. Guess what? Hell, get to 6. You guys would be happy.
Frank Solich.
You are the last Power 5 team to make a bowl game. And guess what? That was the early Trump administration. Indiana could be going to a college football playoff before you.
Yeah.
But Nebraska's back. Yeah,
I heard all that shit this year about Matt Rule and how he's going to, win the Big Ten in his first year. And Dylan Raiola is going to, bring the Cornhusker title hopes back to town. And then they go and lose to a 1-4 in conference UCLA football team, who, let's be honest, UCLA is one of the worst Power 4 teams that there is. And they made them look pretty good yesterday. To be honest, I did not expect Nebraska to go, after playing so well against Ohio State, to go and lay an egg against UCLA was pretty embarrassing.
Well, hear this one out. There is a legit shot that November 23rd, whoever wins that game is going to a bowl game. Because you look at Nebraska's schedule on the way out at USC.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Nebraska's going to lose that game.
Yep, I got USC, especially without Raiola.
Home against Wisconsin and at Iowa. If they don't beat Wisconsin, they started off the year 5-1 and lose the last 6. I can tell you right now, all the goodwill Matt Rule has had is going to blow up.
I agree, and I could see them. I mean, if you can't beat UCLA at home,
yes,
how on earth are you going to go to LA and beat USC? I don't care how bad USC is. USC is better than UCLA.
Correct.
So how are you going to beat them on the road if you can't beat UCLA at home? And that's going to be 4 straight L's for Matt Rule, and couldn't happen to a bigger dick. So
it blows me away. Well, hell, it gets us into our next one with the Wisconsin-Iowa game. I mean, honest to God, did you expect Wisconsin to be this freak? I mean, there's nothing about them that gets you excited. They just exist. They're not good at anything.
Good. They're not good. They're not good at all. And to get blown out 42-10. And honestly, I think Wisconsin's worse than, I think their record makes them look better than they are.
Yes. Well, I mean, what's their best win?
Wisconsin's best win is probably
Rutgers.
Yeah, Rutgers.
Who's like what? Second from the bottom in the Big Ten?
Yeah.
I mean, you got boat race by Bama. You got boat race by USC. You lost to Penn State at home by 14. And you got boat race by Iowa. I mean, you look at their schedule. I mean, Oregon is just going to destroy them next week.
Yeah.
Which comes down to that Nebraska game.
Yeah.
Can they make a bowl game by beating Nebraska?
Yeah, I don't think so. If
they do make a bowl, I mean, quite frankly, I think whoever wins that game, welcome to Detroit. You're going to quick lane.
Yeah, no shit. And, the luster is kind of worn off of Coach Fickle there. He was everybody's baby a couple of years ago. And to be honest, this is why if you have a program that you've built yourself and you've got it ripping and rolling, sometimes leaving it is not the best idea. And I know people want to go and get money, and I know people think that they're making a big time jump to go to a big time program. But let's be honest, Cincinnati was going to the Big 12. So you're going to be a Power 4 team. And why not go and stay with the Cincinnati Bearcats and dominate the Big 12 and be a Power 4 conference champion and get into the playoff. I just have no clue why he decided to go to Wisconsin when he did. And I think it's going to be a big time problem for him because if he gets fired from Wisconsin, who knows who's going to give him another shot.
It'll be a mid-major.
Somebody will. I didn't say nobody will.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I don't know who it will be.
Well, I mean, for our last game, though, before we head off, how about those Trojans? Yeah,
the Trojans are used condom right now. Let's just be honest. I mean, my God, you don't want anything, no one wants anything to do it. It's like throw it in the trash can as quickly as you can because it is nasty. And that is the Trojans right now. I mean, my God, this is a team that a lot of people thought, could contend in the Big Ten. And especially after the way they started the season, beating LSU in the opener like they did. We were talking about how good they were, and now they're 4-5, bro, and they're 2-5 in the Big Ten. This team is reeling, and we're talking about a coach who makes $12 million a year. He gets a home in Beverly Hills. He gets an airplane. I mean, he doesn't have to pay for anything in town. And he can't win a goddamn football game. I mean, is he not the most overpaid coach in all of college football?
Honestly, remember at the beginning of the year, and everyone was giving me shit that SC. I kept saying SC has a very good chance of not making a bowl game. Because I mean, this schedule is not exactly easy. Well, they got to win 2 of 3 on the way out. And I hate to break it to you, they're not beating Notre Dame. They're just not.
No,
that means they got to win home against Nebraska and at UCLA.
I agree with you, and we got to get out of here. But before we do, let's talk just a moment about games next week. Obviously, I think the biggest one's probably Georgia Ole Miss. That's going to determine a lot of things that happen in the SEC. Alabama LSU is also a big game. Which ones am I forgetting?
God, Michigan at Indiana. I mean, I think Indiana blows them out of the water. It's just that's the game I freaking love because Indiana needs more people to watch them and understand how good they truly are.
I would love to see them dismantle Sharon Moore and the Michigan Wolverines. Watch them go 500 after winning the national championship last year with the cheating that was going on. It's hard to win when you don't know what play's coming every time, James.
Absolutely.
And let's talk about those Michigan Wolverines getting their asses kicked again by the Oregon Ducks 38-17 yesterday at home in front of 100,000 people. It was music to my ears.
Well, think about it. If Indiana makes the playoff, I mean, go back to the NCAA basketball tournament. Everybody loves the upset.
Yeah.
Indiana is like going to be everybody's favorite team other than your team because they've never been there before. They're the freaking Cinderella.
They most certainly are, and it'll be interesting to see where they show up in the first playoff rankings, which are going to be released Tuesday night. So be looking for that, and we'll be back next week to break it all down and talk about what are we at, week 11 next week? Good Lord, college football is almost over, and it feels like it just started. So it should be interesting to see. We'll be back right here, same bat time, same bat channel. Keep them up, boys.
Later.